Hi everybody, thanks for coming back for another build guide. This build came along because I was kind of messing around and I'd gotten a couple of items that while I was farming for other stuff this season that I kind of wanted to mess around with and try some different things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But the idea for this build was I wanted to go physical on Primalist, no dots, nothing like that. Initially, I was really leaning into some of the aspects because they can be really good, but I actually pulled back on that a little bit and found some cool synergies with some of the skills in Primalist. So this build, I really like it because it is very flexible with gearing and stats. There's no required uniques whatsoever. I'll show you some options for kind of different ways you can play the build as far as gearing and things like that, and it made it a lot of fun to be able to kind of try different pieces and see if I liked it, see if I didn't like it, see some things were good for this, some things were good for that. It does have a rotation that works with the gear that I have. You don't necessarily have to do the exact rotation, but we'll get to that when we start talking about skills. This build specifically, I have taken it up to about 550 corruption. I think it was like 554, and it does just fine. It's comfortable the way I have it geared, around like 450, but some of my gear is not optimal, and I'll show you that when we start talking about the gear. So let's get started with the build. Alright, so I just kind of wanted to take you through Monolith. I'm cleared a little bit in this one, but to give you an idea of kind of how the rotation works, it's super easy. You've got an unspec'd Fury Leap on your bar, so you'll do that. You'll War Cry, swipe, which will trigger flurry swipes from your Sabertooth. Then you'll hit the actual flurry swipes. Then you drop your Frenzy Totem, which refreshes flurry swipes, so you can hit it that third time. So you're getting it once from swipe, once from triggering it yourself, and once from triggering it yourself after the Frenzy Totem. Now, as I'm running through monos, I'll kind of show you. I don't stick to that. You just won't be able to. Things will happen, and so it's not too big of a deal if you don't stick with it exactly. Bosses, it really does help. So let's just clear this one out. See, and I just messed it up right there. So. But you will have swipe on cooldown all the time, and anytime you think you need an extra flurry swipe, you can just drop that Frenzy Totem because it's going to come up pretty quick, and you should never have mana problems. I haven't even been concerned with mana, and it just doesn't happen. So as you're clearing through, you can just kind of do whatever you think. If you need to, pop a potion, because we are using Brewmaster's Buckle. So that'll keep you a little more tanky. But if you notice, we're keeping our ward up, no problem. And as we're getting those ancestral Sabertooths, we're building even more ward. I mean, I've got 2,000 ward right now, and I mean, it's just kind of a casual monolith. Okay, so let's spend a couple minutes talking about our skills. Now that we finished that mono, and I did kind of talk about some of the things that are happening in the build when we were going through there. So it'll kind of give you an idea of some of the nodes we're doing. Now, if you'll take a look, well, let's start with Sabertooth because that's kind of our main one. We did talk about Ancestral Hunter, so you'll want that for the Ancestral Sabertooths, and then the better chance to get them and the damage increase for them. And then I took this one. You don't necessarily need to. You could take this and throw it into damage. We don't have much attunement on this build. I have a little bit, so I just figured having them last a little longer would be nice. If you want to pull that, totally fine. That is important, and then this one. Destructive Power allows them to cast Upheaval, which you saw happening over and over. It's kind of like how Bear will trigger Earthquake. Sabertooth triggers Upheaval. So we've got them doing that. Those are the two main ones for this. Everything else is pretty much just damage. So Savage Catalyst gives you those flurry swipes, and then this is increasing damage for all of the different attacks. If you wanted to do something like move speed or something, you absolutely could. I didn't take this one. They don't leap that often, but they do it often enough that I think it's worth having. Okay, so the next one is our other minion. So these both get a lot of extra points from our things that add to minions. Now, while I do have 35 there and 31 here, you could absolutely do this with less. So I'll kind of show you where those points can come out. In this one, real easy. You can just pull them out of the damage right here, especially early on. The first ones you want to go for are Ancestral Hunter and Destructive Power. Probably Destructive Power first. Okay, and then we get into Frenzy Totem and Frenzy Effect. Here we go. Furious Cry. That's the one where your Frenzy Totem will reset your companion ability, the flurry swipes, and this allows it to double cast when that happens. Now, this right here, Grounded, is totally optional. You do not have to take this at all. If you don't have the extra points into minions, this is the first one to go. I do this one because I play on controller, and the Frenzy Totem summoned 1 meter in front of player is how it always happens. Like, I don't know that there's another way on controller to place a totem. It always just kind of throws it out in front of you. So it doesn't, there's no downside for me. It just costs less mana and gives me more damage. If you decided you didn't want this one, you could absolutely add a little there, and maybe Atera's Blessing to just give you a little healing. Honestly, there's not much else on here you need. Revival speed, if you're having to revive them, you're in trouble anyway. So, kind of up to you there. Alright, we've got Swipe here. Two things are happening here. So, we get our kill threshold with Culling, and then Primal Resonance. It's a very powerful node, especially when you only have one companion. When you swipe, while it is on a cooldown from Claws of the Bear, you will always trigger your companion ability, and if you only have one, that's the companion. And then down here, you're adding Aspect of the Panther, which benefits your Sabertooth. So adding points there is great. I mean, those are kind of the only two ways that you'd want to go on this tree. Upheaval. This one, you've got Sundering Strike, and then down this way, damage and stun chance. We're not worried about attack speed scaling, so just range and area, and that's pretty much it. And then Warcry. This one is a little different, and I actually changed it towards the end, and you'll see why once we start talking about some of the gear. But you want to do the usual pull instead of knockback. This point, Warcry on crit, you could probably get rid of that. Put that into Frailty if you want. Maybe a little more healing or something like that, or Energized Charge to give you a little more haste. Honestly, you're not going to crit very often because you're not hitting very often. That swipe with the slow cooldown, you don't really have a spam ability. You're just kind of floating around and trying to pick your best spot to hit the enemy. So, okay, that is a quick rundown on the skills. So let's talk for a second about passives. It's really straightforward passive tree, though you could switch it up a little if you wanted. Of course, grabbing as much strength as we can. That helps with our damage for our companion. Health and health restoration. damage leech, and then a little bit of damage. You could also do health instead of this one. Doesn't really matter too much. So when all the rest of our points go into Beastmaster. So of course we're going to grab more strength. We're going to grab aspect of the shark for ourselves. This one, Artor's loyalty. We're not planning on having a second companion. Might as well grab it. It just ups your damage. That's it. And then armor shred. We definitely want that. Weathered elements I took because I needed some resists. You could absolutely, instead of doing that one, add to aspect duration. You want to have minimum 3 points here so that your Sabertooth will get aspect of the shark and boar when you do. But you could throw a couple points there, a couple points here if you wanted. You could also do health, companion health, that kind of thing. Any of those would be good uses for this if you don't need the resists. Same thing up here, vitality will give you some more resistances. If you need that one, you can do it instead. And then aspect of the links, we've got that one. Really, I'm just using this one for the companion crit multi. We don't hit enough for it to make a big difference for ourselves. I would probably keep it. If you wanted to pull that to make yourself more tanky or something like that, you could absolutely pull those points and put them somewhere else. So let's start talking about the gear. This build, like I said, doesn't require any uniques at all. There are some uniques that are either kind of like best in slot or work really well for it, but if you don't have any of these pieces, you will be fine with an exalted until you get them. So let's start kind of at the top. Right now I'm using an exalted helm. I've got strength, minion crit multi. You can also get minion damage, which is actually probably better, and then resists and a sealed health. If you wanted to go for a unique, the things that I think kind of make sense, Artor's Legacy, of course. We would really just be getting the minion skills off of this, though, and the cold resist. Nothing else really matters, and I don't know, I like the 2 extra minion skills I didn't need, and I hate using something just for that. I'd rather have the full, all the rest of the affixes. Same thing, Peak of the Mountain, real easy to get with 3 LP or 4. And you'd really just be using this for the attributes. Critical strike chance, okay, but your minion doesn't inherit that from you, so not really a big reason to use that one, unless you just want the attributes. And the 4 LP, I mean, that could make it worthwhile. So you'll have that. One thing to kind of look out for that I noticed, but I didn't quite get lucky exactly, was this one, the River Champion affix. So these will drop from champions, and it's minion damage and maximum companions. So this one's a T7. You can also get that with a T7 prefix or suffix, so it could actually be really powerful for you. These do come in primordial as well. This is actually a really good helm for this build. I didn't end up using it, but it's got the minion melee damage. I think that's a T7 on that one, and then a T8 minion damage sealed, and that goes all the way up to 240%. So that's another really good option for you if you kind of keep an eye out for it. Next, Amulet, Evolution's End. Kind of, I feel like best in slot for minion builds right now, for sure. Increases minion damage, you get 2 to all skills, resistance, attributes, movement speed, all that. I have minion damage on this. You can also do, I believe, minion damage in area on this one. It's a little flexible as to what you slam onto this one. If you didn't want to use an Evolution's End, you wanted to try something else, you've got Inheritance of the Erased would be a good option if you get lucky with those affixes. And I mean, even in the beginning, you could use a Fang for sure. Melee physical damage would help your minions, of course. Your minions can't be stunned is nice, and then a little bit of health and resistances. I mean, it really would fit the build, maybe just not quite as powerful as the other one. So And then, of course, Mantle of the Pale Ox. Strength and minion skills are great on that. And then strength and health regen. You can also do strength and minion crit multi, that kind of thing. Whatever you happen to get on there. I think probably your +2 to minion skills and strength are the most important things for rolls on that. The rest of them are nice to have, not anything required. I'm also using Brewmaster's Buckle. You don't necessarily have to use this one. I just tend to find it makes builds a lot tankier, especially when you can just hit that potion and it's kind of a, a almost not quite a get out of jail free card, but it really does help. This one we don't really care about the stats much. Having a high vitality is nice because that'll give you some resistances, but doesn't really matter for endurance that much. We're not like an endurance build or anything. This one does have endurance slammed onto it, but you could absolutely do minimum minion damage and health or whatever you'd like. And then rings, I'm using double phantom grips. You don't necessarily have to use those. Oh, sorry, jumped off of that too quick. Brewmaster's Buckle, if you feel like you're tanky enough, maybe you don't need it, all this. Jungle Queen's Chaps of Holding are really good. They're going to give you minion physical damage, which of course we'll use. Dexterity does actually still help your Sabertooth, so there's that. And then, it has so many potions. I mean, 16 potions. You can just spam those whenever you need to and use that as a second option for healing. So that is, I think, another good option. I just didn't feel quite as tanky with that one. If you're good about staying on top of your potions, that might actually be even a better one for you. Okay, so back to the Phantom Grips. You really just want the +2 to minion skills. Minion critical strike chance is nice, and then minion damage or strength on those, whichever you'd like. I did minion damage on both, and what's the other one? Health. Minion health. So got those. Kind of the last one for these is Advent of the Erased. Again, not required at all. If you get lucky on the affixes, I really do think the Weaver's Will stuff can be really good if you get lucky. Like, this is a double T6. I'm never going to say no to that, even if it's not a T7. And then increased movement speed and health. Awesome. Really just look for strength and then resistances or health and armor kind of deal. But those can be really good, especially when your minions gain haste and frenzy for 3 seconds. So it's really good for us. If you don't want to use that, don't get lucky, exalts are fine. I also think these are a little slept on, especially for monos. Maybe not so much for bosses, but they keep you moving really fast with the extra evade charge and the haste on demand with evade. I think they're really fun. So strength, movement speed, kind of whatever you slam onto that one is fine. Going back to the rings for just a second. If you don't want to use 2 Phantom Grips, or you don't have a good one or something, Ribbons of Blood from Abomination is really good. Gives you melee physical damage for minions, and your minions can't be crit, which is great. This one is just fine. You could lose 2 points in any of those minion skills. I think the main thing is just to make sure you have enough to cover all of the things we talked about in skills. If you miss a point or two, it's not really going to make that big of a difference for this build. Okay, so now that we've got kind of those out of the way, let's talk about kind of the last 4 slots that all kind of work together. So you'll see this in Primalist builds, but gloves that are the Last Bearer's Fury reforged, and they've got that health regen affix. If you want more health regen, you don't have to seal it, but really you can seal it and get quite a bit of benefit out of that health regen because of all the strength we have. This one happens to be a double T6. You do not have to have that, and if you haven't been able to craft them yet early on, just go for the set gloves. They actually give you more health regen than what I have, but you'll use those in conjunction with the Vessel of Strife, which I have Sabertooth, 4 to Sabertooth on that, and minion damage, of course. And this will kind of supercharge your ward with all of that health regen that you have. And then, of course, you'll want Cleaver Solution, because that'll boost our intellect, and let us keep that ward that we're getting. Our other ward generator is Bones of the Ancestral Pack. So those are going to give us minion skills, and they're going to generate a lot of ward for us. Cleaver Solution, you're going to want minion melee damage. Doesn't matter if it's spell or bow, but you want minion melee damage, or double minion melee damage if you can get it. So you've got that, and then, like I said, the Bones of the Ancestral Pack. If you didn't want to run this setup, it would actually be really easy to change. You don't have to depend on ward if you would prefer to do something like a shield. Bastion of Honor, you could absolutely drop it in there, but that would allow you to either you could stick with the other three or even change those up. Bastion of Honor will give you a lot of block chance for strength, and the main reason I don't typically use this one is because it's hard to get. It's pretty rare, and I have really bad luck getting it. So if you have better luck, if you get one drops that's a good roll and LP or something, absolutely use it. If you're wanting to get away from like Vessel of Strife and stuff like that, you could absolutely switch out the Cleaver Solution, kind of any gloves you want. You could use a Nile's Tooth, that one gives you 2 to melee attacks, so 2 to swipe and 2 to minion melee skills. That's going to be another good option if you want to use the Bastion of Honor too. So those are kind of some options you've got there. Then let's talk about idols for just a second. The main thing you're going to look for is there we go. Minion cooldown recovery speed and minion melee damage. You could also do minion critical strike chance. Any of those 3 are great. And then if you're looking for small idols, not for resistances, look for this one, the Fanged Small Weaver Idol of Iron. So it'll give you minion physical penetration and minion physical damage. And it's a real easy one to get. Not always easy to get them both on the same thing, but it's just something you can look out for. So we've got that. Blessings, again, none of these are required for the build. I just have resistance. I would say the main one that you probably want to look out for is this one, increased minion damage. That's really about it. You can do more defensive on this. I did add a health regen to this, which will help us with our ward. But some of these are not even optimal. Like this one, critical strike multiplier does not matter. You could definitely put void resist or health. I think health on this one. But yeah, void resist or health would be perfectly fine. So that's kind of all the gear. Like I said, none of these are required. I actually started this build with using Coral Aegis, just because I kind of wanted to lean into stun and see if I could make it work with that, and kind of jokingly called this my Hello Kitty build. That one I think is a little underpowered, though if you just had one right off the bat, it would probably be fine to use for a couple hundred corruption. So. Alright everybody, so that was the build. I hope you liked it. Like I said, I wanted something that was very flexible and easy to use and easy to gear, and I definitely think this one is. So, like I said, had a lot of fun playing it, and I hope you enjoy it. I'll have a loot filter for it, and it's maybe not have all of the options, but it's going to have most of what I talked about on there. My loot filters tend to be pretty broad because I like to see more items. Like anything with 2 LP, I want to see it immediately. Some things I want to see no matter what, like red rings and stuff like that. You could also use red rings on this if you wanted. So I'll have that in there, and then the build guide will be on Last Epoch Tools. So hope you liked it, and have fun playing.